Let's see, just some shout outs. Morning Deb and Sandra and Pam. Morning all. Glad you guys can make it.
Yeah.
So, earnest money. The topic today, besides just kind of catching up on the market, is earnest money release.
Yes.
So we get calls on a regular basis that an offer was terminated, and let's say that you're on the buyer's side. You terminated the offer. It's Friday afternoon. You sent it in like at noon, and I get a call at 5 o'clock at night saying, "Oh my gosh, they haven't released the earnest money yet. They haven't signed anything." That's kind of a typical thing.
What do we do?
What do we do?
What do we do? That's always the question. What do we do?
Yeah. So first thing is, if you read your contract, let me pull it up here.
Yeah, and again, so when the buyer wants to terminate, you're drafting up a notice to terminate and an earnest money release document.
Yes, and the notice to terminate does not get signed by the seller.
It only gets signed by the terminating party. So as soon as that document is generated and signed by the terminating party and sent off, you are officially terminated. You don't have to have earnest money back in hand to be considered terminated.
Yeah,
so if you're on the seller's side and you receive a notice to terminate, you can actually start marketing the property upon receipt of that termination. You don't have to have the earnest money go back before you can start marketing because you're already terminated. So hopefully, just a little sidebar.
So yeah, we're just talking about the buyers. We'll talk about seller termination and if they have any rights on another.
Yeah, that'll be a totally different Tuesday.
But this is on the buyer's side. You're terminating due to inspection, due to financing, anything that's in your contract that you're on the date and deadline, and it's just a normal termination because things aren't working out quite right. If you read section 4.3.2
of the contract to buy and sell,
it says return of earnest money. If buyer has a right to terminate and timely terminates, meaning in the contract, the date and the deadline, you met it, you're good. Buyer is entitled to the return of the earnest money as provided in the contract. If this contract is terminated as set forth in paragraph 25 and except as provided in paragraph 24, earnest money dispute. That's another story. If the earnest money has not already been returned following receipt of notice to terminate, seller agrees to execute and return to buyer or broker working with the buyer written mutual instructions, earnest release form within 3 days of seller's receipt of such form.
So let's paraphrase that.
It's Friday, you sent it in to the listing agent. 3 days you have.
And it doesn't say business days,
3
it
days.
just says 3 days. So Saturday, Sunday, or a holiday would count as a day.
Yep. So you should be expecting to get the notice signed by the seller by what, Monday? By Monday. Now once we get the signatures, now we got to send that to the title company.
Yep.
And that might take a day.
For the title company to release the check.
To release the check.
They're usually pretty quick. But
So don't panic on a Friday afternoon if you terminate a contract and you're like, oh my gosh, they haven't signed and where's my money? We want to go buy a house this weekend. It doesn't work that quickly.
no.
Most of the time, 2-3 days, everybody signs, earnest money is released. Now, what does happen occasionally is the seller's not real happy about the buyer terminating.
Yeah.
Maybe it's kind of last minute, but still within time frame. So this is all still within time frame. And maybe it's that loan conditions deadline, which is a very loose and easy way for a buyer to get out because it says upon buyer's sole subjective discretion, they can terminate their on financing.
And maybe that financing deadline's 4 days before closing. Seller's not going to be super happy when they've already started packing boxes and the buyer changes their mind on their financing.
Not going to be happy. So here's the phone call I get on this. It's been the 3 days. I read the contract. I knew that it was going to be 3 days. I wasn't calling you, Todd or Stacey, because I read the contract. Now it's day 4, and everything's gone silent. Nobody's calling me back. The other agent hasn't called me. what do we do? Do we need to go to mediation? And my response is the seller is disappointed.
Yeah.
They're a little frustrated right now. And I would say stay in communication with the other agent and let's give them a couple extra days.
We call it the cooling off period.
Yes, let's cooler heads prevail and let the other agent do their job in consoling and educating the seller on what their true rights are in the process of if they think they were truly wronged in the contract, what are they going to have to do? They're going to have to either go to mediation or arbitration. You're going to start with a phone call to an attorney, regardless of mediation or arbitration, because you want to find out what are your rights, what's this look like. And most of the time, we're talking $3,000 to $5,000 in earnest money. It's not worth anyone's time to go after $3,000 to $5,000 in earnest money, especially if people terminated within
the dates and deadlines and the milestones of the contract. I mean,
Yeah.
if you've missed a deadline and then you try and terminate on that, well, that's a different
another story.
But yeah, usually sellers are they're not sitting at their computer excited and antsy to sign an earnest money release. And
Yeah.
sometimes it takes a little bit longer for them to finally do that.
So I would say, and I've got people on Facebook right now who I've given this consultation to, let people cool off.
Yep.
Let's give them 7 days. And if we don't hear something in a total of 7 days, I will then reach out to the other managing broker, employing broker, and he or she and I will have a little chit chat and see if we can't help people see the light of day.
Yeah, because sometimes you can help massage things
Yes.
a little bit, and that's been beneficial. But most of the
time, I would say 80% of the time, let everybody rest, give them some time. It might take a week, and things just happen.
all of a sudden it just all comes together.
I'd say 1 out of 5 of these, and this probably comes up almost once a month. I get a phone call about this type of stuff, earnest money, not releasing it. And I'd say 1 out of 5, I actually have to call an employing broker or a manager, and we have to get involved, and we have to try and help people understand the contract and the ramifications if they need to go further. So the lesson here is give people some time.
Yeah, and and that's you having to educate your buyer that even though the contract says 3 business days, just because they haven't signed it by then, you're letting your buyer know, hey, I'm trying to communicate with the other side. They're, a bit hesitant to sign this. We're just going to keep that, lines of communication open and push forward. The recommendation is let's give them an extra couple of days, and then that's when you get on the horn to us and say, help.
And we can talk about if they're outside their dates and deadlines, and they shouldn't be getting the earnest money back, you still don't just go and give away your buyer's earnest money. That should never be the recommendation. You're in the wrong, give it away.
Yeah.
And a buyer should always consult an attorney if they think that they have done something wrong, they're in jeopardy of that earnest money, they should get some good consultation. Because most of the time, I, again, get involved in these, and I would say, again, back to 80% of the time, I'm able to mediate without going to mediation between, again, me and the managing broker, and we can usually 60-40, 50-50, save a couple bucks for everybody just to make it go away easy without, But it depends on how severe it is. If the buyer was hanging out a seller for 3 months and kept dragging it on and on and on.
And then terminates the day of closing
Yeah.
and walks away from the earnest money. I mean, that's one thing.
That's one thing.
But
But you need to know up front is give it a little time. Don't push too hard, let people breathe, and stay in good communication with the other agent. Bring me in within a week.
yeah, so if you're brought in within a week and you can't massage it with the other broker, then the next step is mediation.
Next step is mediation.
And that is done through.
That's through a mediator. You don't have to go through the Board of Realtors. We hear the Board of Realtors, we have mediation, but that's usually for ethics complaints. That's stuff that we're doing wrong. But when there's an earnest money dispute, the two other parties, the buyer and the seller, potential buyer and seller, they're the ones that hire a mediator, and there are mediation companies out there. Attorneys will mediate. There are some free services depending on the county that you're in. That's up to your clients to figure out. You do not set up the mediation. The contract is between buyer and seller. And it's up to them to set up mediation. And again, rarely does this go through the real estate, or through the board of realtors. That's a different.
And then again, for those that have never been through mediation, it's awesome that you've never been through mediation. But mediation, I mean, it is bringing all the parties together to have a discussion. It's not having an attorney fight for the money. It's you guys are sitting at a table with a third party who is playing referee, saying, this is why I think I terminated correctly. Well, this is why I think I should get some of the money. And they just kind of dispute back and forth, hoping to come.
Try and massage it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where you can come to an agreement they're both comfortable with, the win-win or lose-lose. They're both comfortable with it. No one's going to go home like ecstatic. But if you go to arbitration, there is no in between. It's either you are in the right or you're in the wrong. And so
so if you don't get to an agreement in mediation, then it goes to arbitration, and that's 100% to the buyer or 100% to the seller. So.
And I have never been to an arbitration over earnest money. I've been to arbitrations, but not over earnest money. It's a very long, drawn-out process to get to arbitration. It's a 9-month process, if not more. And most people aren't going to wait that long. So mediation will work. And usually mediation, again, back to the brokers, the managing brokers, we usually are able to mediate before it even has to go to a legal mediator. So
hopefully that kind of answers some questions just on timeline and what expectations are and kind of what the process is. If this happens, then this happens. If this happens, then this happens. Do we have any questions?
So let's see here. Eileen, arbitration stinks. Yeah, we've been there. It's very stressful.
It's lengthy.
It's lengthy. Tanya Brown, if ever it comes to mediation, can we direct the client somewhere? So, like I said, attorneys, most attorneys will mediate. If you call, again, Oliver Frescon and Joyner Goodman Greenstein, they have mediation. But again, I would, have your clients check into the county that they're in. There might be a free service.
But if you have a mediator or recommendations, you can certainly give them recommendations.
Yes.
Here's 3 people, go ahead and call.
But again, it's not your job to do that.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's best to kind of remove yourself from things like that. Do you recommend using an amend extend if you suspect the earnest money is not going to be received by the anticipated deadline?
Well, you can't really amend a contract that's no longer in force.
Yeah, you terminated your contract.
Yeah.
So
there's no need to amend.
No. You'd be reviving it. Well, if you revive a contract now, they didn't want to. So no, that doesn't work. If you're not going to get the earnest money, you're not going to get the earnest money, and people are going to have to just cool down. And amend extend isn't. You don't want to give them the right to keep the earnest money even longer. So,
exactly. Yeah.
So
Contractually, you don't extend that 3 business days. Our advice is just don't jump, and start calling attorneys and getting too aggressive when it might just take an extra 24 or 48 hours. I mean, you guys are already terminated, so what's an extra couple of days?
Yeah.
But good question.
No,
That's a great question.
Great question. And again, it usually works out. People just got to calm down, and it usually works itself out.
Well, I would say 95% of my experiences is if you or I get a phone call and it says, hey, today's the 3rd day, that hasn't been signed, blah, 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 and we give the recommendation, give it a few more days, just hang tight, tell your buyer to wait for a little bit. Literally by the next morning, I get a text message that says, guess what, we're signed. So, I mean, it does. It seems like it always kind of happens within that 24 hours after what that deadline is supposed to be.
Yeah.
So.
Funny thing is, for one of our agents, I said, give it this time, wait till Thursday. If you don't hear something on Thursday, I'll call the managing broker. That just happened 2 weeks ago. I'm on the phone with the managing broker. We're exchanging pleasantries. We know each other, just chit-chatting. I was just starting to kind of give them the backstory of what's going on, because we don't always, as managing brokers, know what's happening right this second. So I'm giving them the backstory, and as I'm giving the backstory, I got an email from our agent and said, "Oh, I got the earnest money." I'm like, so I'm talking to the managing broker. Well, this worked out great. We got it all done. So yeah.
End the call now. Don't even need to do anything. So
that was fun.
That's awesome. So yeah, if you guys have any questions about earnest money release, timelines, or just any other real estate related questions, type them in the comment section and we'll kind of fire through and see what you guys need.
So let's see here. Sandra, I withdrew one listing as they were going through legal issues with the builder. The court case was delayed until August because of COVID. It should have been resolved in April. Okay, so
that's good to know.
That's good to know what happened. Eileen, let's see, where'd you go? Eileen, can we chat a bit about buyers not delivering the earnest money and then canceling? Can the seller go after the buyer based on their promise to deliver if the buyer cancels not within the grounds of their contract? Well, a couple of issues there. If they don't deliver their earnest money, well, then they're in breach of the contract. Mm-hmm. Okay, they haven't already adhered to the contract. You're supposed to deliver it, so it's a voidable contract.
Correct.
It's not void; it's a voidable contract. Yes, the seller could go after them, but there are other things that the buyer still has. Those other contingencies in the contract haven't gone away. Mm-hmm. So if they still have an inspection, well, they still have the right to inspection. If they have loan termination, they still have those. Those don't disappear because they didn't redeem their earnest money. Mm-hmm. So I've
always found it not worthwhile for a seller to try and go after a buyer that has not tendered earnest money and they feel that they terminated maybe not in the most ethical way.
Yeah. And the thing is, this should have been caught very quickly. We're having earnest monies redeemed within a day, 3 days. Mm-hmm. If it's day 4 and you haven't gotten your earnest money, the contract's terminated. It's dead. They've breached it. You need to extend it if the earnest money does come in. But if that buyer says, "No, I'm done. I'm not doing it," how much damage has the seller really had? Mm-hmm. If you did go to court, because the courts will look at damage, mm-hmm. and it was off the market for 3 days. It's not worth it.
Yeah,
not worth it.
It's more stress and headache. It'd be better just to put the home back on the market. And yeah, the seller's gonna be frustrated and you're gonna be disappointed, but stuff does happen and you just move on. It's better to channel that energy in a positive way than to get hung up on trying to fight for money that most likely a court system is gonna say, you're not entitled to that.
Yeah.
So.
And I agree, Eileen. It stinks when the seller accepts an offer, there's backup offers, multiple offers, and then maybe they go find something else. Why? So there could
you lose momentum.
Yeah, you do. But it's just not, it's not worth anyone's time to go fight for. The nice thing about when you have earnest money, when it's in escrow, and if the buyer's in the wrong, the buyer has to fight to get it. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that wrote a check, it's gone, it's out of their pocket, now they gotta go fight to get it. The seller doesn't have to fight to get it, they just don't have to release it. Exactly. So they're not out of anything. On this scenario, they haven't given it, well now you want the seller to go fight for something they never got. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, and so, as a listing agent, and Eileen, I know you're so detail oriented, but as a listing agent, just a general good rule of best business practice is really look at those earnest money deadlines and make sure that they're not 7 days out. Make sure that those buyers agents, when they're submitting offers to you and your seller, that you're bringing to your seller's attention, hey, this earnest money deadline is 7 days out. Maybe we counter back and say we want it within 48 hours. Just to kind of help things like that from occurring, because they can drag things out and then never ever turn in earnest money, and then maybe you've been off the market for a week or for 10 days. But traditionally industry standard is 24 to 48 hours for that earnest money redemption.
Yeah, and so it never hurts to have an accepted backup offer. If you've got multiple offers, mm-hmm. then, you know, that's a perfect time to accept another backup. We've got the clauses for that, so you don't lose all three people. So
Yeah, exactly. So my interactive contract on Elevate, if you go into that and under the additional provisions, I have the backup language in there. If you're used to using clauses in CTM, when you go to additional provisions, click on the orange clause button. It opens up all the different clauses that we have purchased from Frascona, and it's the backup offer clause. There's 3 different versions of it. I recommend the 3rd version, which is the most lengthy, and it basically just states this offer is going in backup position and won't be in full force until the current offer is terminated and we give notice. And so then you don't even have to, you know, put the home back on the market. And you can accept 1, 2, 3, 4 backup offers in consecutive order. So you'll be in first position, you'll be in second position, you'll be in third position.
Yeah.
So.
Tanya, very good question. Can seller go back on market if they have pursued the buyer for the earnest money? Yes. So the buyer is the one that terminated the contract. It's terminated, but earnest money is a separate issue. So you bet.
Yeah, you start showing that property, marketing that property immediately.
Yeah.
Yep, very good question.
I think that's all the questions we had. Again, like we said, we're trying to keep these Tuesday talks to half-hour-ish. Here every Tuesday for you guys. Keep bringing you kind of what's going on in the market. Hot topics that we keep seeing on the hotline. Hopefully this is helpful. If you have any other questions real quick, I'll look at it. I'm not seeing anything. You're welcome, Fred. And again, we'll bring Amir. Let's do that next week.
Yeah, we'll get him lined
If
up
we can
next
get him
week
lined up
if he
and-
doesn't have any commitments during the 10 o'clock hour. And yeah, we'll just get a mortgage update.
Yeah, what's happening? Yeah, that'd be good. Anyway, love your guys' little emojis. They're so cute. Anyway, thanks, Michelle.
All right, you guys have a great rest of your day.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Take care. See ya.
All right, talk to you later. Bye.